Hello, 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 and welcome to the newest episode of Pop Culture Therapy. I'm Cruellica Kain.
And I'm Advent Nebula.
Today we're here to talk about something that we actually both like. It may not be anime of culture, even though some of it does include the elements of our culture. But we're talking about mecha anime and why it doesn't seem to be clicking with newer audiences or just younger audiences.
And sometimes when you look at the mecha anime, outside of the occasional show that's kind of a fan servicey type of with the modern stuff, most mecha anime stays true to what came out from with Go the Guy with the Super Robot stuff. With he started back in the day and that went on to be Go Line and all of those shows, or Gundam, which are stories that use giant robots to make a commentary on war. And a lot of mecha animes follow that up until you got to Evangelion, which was just a subversion of the mecha genre itself.
Or you have Big O, which utilized mecha as a way of fighting
To tell a neo-noir story.
Or you have Code Geass, which was a story kind of like Gundam in the way of an allegory of war, but it also was a way of showing that mecha is not as good as it seems.
Yeah. And most recently, which for some reason ended up being a little bit more popular in the home country, where a lot of times the mecha animes that have been coming out recently have been popular more in North America and Europe, with 86, which light novels are still going. It's a hard commentary on modern day warfare, because there seems to be no common enemy.
And which series is this?
This is called 86.
Oh, yes, you were mentioning that earlier. So, it's kind of fascinating because isekai has been around forever, so it's not like isekai is a brand new thing.
It's just isekai has blown up pretty much, I want to say, about 6 or 7 years ago.
Yes,
and it really, Sword Art kind of really started the growth, but it was a few years after that where we started seeing almost every isekai light novel start getting an adaptation.
And so it feels like the moment isekai really got its popularity, that's where mecha anime has kind of fallen to the wayside.
Unless you're an established franchise or a very popular ongoing manga or light novel, it's like nobody wants to take a risk on adapting a mecha anime anymore.
No, and I think the only reason, like you said, that Gundam is still around is because it is such an established franchise. And most of the fans that are still going to it are ones that have been watching all of the mecha anime for Gundam, like with Hathaway's Flash or NT.
Or there are people that build Gunpla and just love watching the shows. That's why Build Fighters is more popular than a lot of the main hard-hitting Gundam series and specials that have been coming out over the years.
Oh, yeah. But it's fascinating because I know there's been more afterwards. So it's not like to say this was the last and final. But the one series that got the most love that was a mecha anime really was Code Geass.
Yeah, it was the last big mecha franchise for a new IP that came out, and we're going on 15 years since it came out.
Exactly. Now. And yes, there's shows that'll have mecha because you have Miss Kroitsu and the Monster Development Squad. They have their own versions of mechs. You have other series that have mechs.
And Love After World Domination because it's a satire of Sentai.
But outside of that, you don't have a true series that's dedicated to mechs. And what we look at is, like, what our barometer is for being dedicated to a mech is really where I would say you have about 50% of your story utilizing machines to help tell that narrative.
Look at Eureka 7. Its movies have barely got any kind of advertisement as they've been coming out in the U.S. since it's been the anniversary years of Eureka 7 as it's been going on. I didn't even realize that we were already on the third and final movie of the movie trilogy until I ended up seeing an ad a few days ago.
What made me really take the home that kids I say kids because they're all 17 and 18-year-olds, so comparatively to me, they're kids. Well, what really brought it to home is my job is at Lockheed Martin. So we are in space, things like that. I was at a school event, and one of the students had asked, what made you want to go to Lockheed Martin? So my joke was I either wanted to see the Death Star or a Gundam being built. I got blank looks for both. And we'll get into the whole Star Wars thing at another day where the fandom is aging, but the franchises are not. But with that said, on the Gundam side, nobody knew who Gundam was.
Yeah, my generation in high school knew what Gundam was.
My generation. Because if you ask many people, okay, I'll ask you, what was your first Gundam series?
It was G Gundam.
And you either hear that, my first Gundam series, Wing. Even though they're reversed production order,
yeah,
they were not reversed with what you saw. Wing came out first, then G Gundam. Because the popularity of Wing is what brought G Gundam to America.
And we wouldn't have gotten the UC Gundams if it wasn't for the success of Wing.
Well, the UC, yes, because the UC Gundams had come out years and years before, but nobody knew what they were because they're on the fringes of everything, unless you were like a diehard, you knew Gundam from Japan.
Or you were one of those that was building Gunpla back then.
Otherwise, you didn't know what Gundam was in the early 2000s. Maybe some people did, but not the majority of like what everybody knew right around, I think it was like 2005 Gundam Wing came out here.
Something like that?
Yeah, I know it was early 2000s. And actually, no, it had to be earlier than that because
Wing aired in 97 in Japan.
Yeah.
So it had to be 98 or 99 when it came over here.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it. Like, it had to have been earlier than that. But nevertheless,
it was one of the launch titles for Toonami, so...
Oh, 2000. That's where it came out. Okay. But still, it's one of those things that we were practically raised on Mecha. Because if you watched, I can't remember the American title, but you had Tetsujin, you had Mazinger Z, you had Astro Boy.
If you watch Voltron, that was Go Lion.
You had Voltron. You had, well, and even some of our cartoon shows had mecha in them. Transformers. That's like the pinnacle of mecha.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not a person operating a mecha unless you did the whole Headmasters thing, but tends to be just a machine.
Macross.
Mm-hmm.
Which was Robotech. So we've had, and you end up saying Macross or Robotech to a younger fan, they just stare at you like, huh?
Well, yeah, unless you reference Voltron from Netflix, nobody knows what you're talking about. And now you have Ultraman. Yes, Ultraman is technically a tokusatsu, but for a fan who does not know what tokusatsu is or has never seen Ultraman, and you see the anime, it's a mecha anime.
Yeah.
But it really shows that we've come to a point in our culture, and I'm just going to use the American culture because it's easier just to reference here, but we've come to a point in our culture where it feels like technology has advanced so much that mecha to those fans has become unrealistic.
Yeah. Or because the actual storytelling in the shows are really hard-hitting, and some of the more modern mecha shows, especially Iron-Blooded Orphans for Gundam, are very much on the realistic sides of the horror war.
It is, yes. And if you think about it, with the way Iron-Blooded Orphans went, the Gundam mech itself was so different. And yes, it's a mecha series. Yes, it came out after Code Geass. But even Code Geass was very serious. It was very tonal. But with Iron-Blooded Orphans, you were really in reality.
Yeah, especially with, and spoiler alert, for anybody who hasn't watched it, the heroes do not win in the end. which is making this year's follow-up, The Witch of Mercury, taking place 7 years later. The main character knows what happened, and she's on a revenge trail from the synopsis.
And it's so hard because if you've watched Gundam, like Universal Century Gundam, it's UC, many people just call it UC, but if you watch that Gundam series, it is very, very in-your-face, political. Even when they're in the mechs, combat through that, it's still very political. Same thing when you go all the way forward to even Gundam 00. That's still very political.
Well, Gundam 00 was a commentary on the U.S. invasion of Iraq.
Well, exactly. Oh, yeah. Those undertones weren't very undertone. And even when you have a series like Evangelion, most of the people who got into like Evangelion, they watched it in the 90s or early 2000s. And so when you see all these modern series and you don't see mechs, you see sorcery, you see magic, you see slime. I'm sorry, I understand I was reincarnated into a slime is good. I just don't get it. So
he basically became the Demon Lord.
Yeah, but I'd rather watch Overlord if I'm going to deal with that. But I just, it's basically, it feels like...
Their power fantasies is what's come out that people have gravitated towards.
Well, I think it's like what it was for mech for us. Because when I watched any of my anime, and I have a huge collection, it goes across many, many genres. So it's not like I'm just focused on mech. But admittedly, looking at my anime collection, I have a propensity towards mech,
shonen, and comedy.
And the irony is, all the shonen is mine.
Outside of the Dragon Ball.
Yes, I have a lot of shoujo too, but the prime majority is shonen. But nevertheless, that's what we enjoyed. Because even when looking at the Fate series, even though there weren't mechs, it is still that very political intrigue, which was what mech animes did. Because even Evangelion was so political, even though I hate Shinji. And I was asked who my least favorite character in all anime is, and it's Shinji. But that's what really drove the complex storylines, because prior to Gundam, we didn't have complex storylines. So for us, when we look at complexity and we look at stories that are going to make us feel and make us angry or feel connected, it's always related to mechs.
Yeah, because if you actually look at the Super Robot shows that Go Nagai put together, let's build a giant robot, defeat the giant monster, continue on.
Rinse and repeat. That's what Ishinomori did with double 009.
Yeah, Cyborg 009.
And now when we look at the Isekai series, and once again, we're fans of Isekai. We did an entire video. He is a super fan of Isekai. So we are not downing Isekai. But Isekai has proven that not that anime has gotten too mature, like classic anime is more mature than modern anime. That's not true. We have seen quite a few that are like, holy shit, I need a minute. But still, it's just, I think it's another revival, like of what we had early on, even in the 90s and 2000s, that we need a break from reality. And where Mecha was our escape, it's now fantasy.
Yeah. And another one is like with the mecha stuff, even though it isn't true mecha, but space operas at the same time have kind of dwindled off as well.
Yeah, they have, because I haven't seen anything for like Captain Harlock.
We got the reboot of the Legend of the Galactic Heroes and the reboot of Star Blazers, but you don't hear a lot of people those except out older fandoms like us.
Yeah, even with Galaxy Express, you don't hear much talk about it. And if you ever want to find any of the classic stuff, Discotheque is really your primary home to obtain it.
Or you can watch it on Retro Crush. A lot of the stuff's popping up on there.
Very true. And it's well worth it. And it's fascinating to watch the growth of anime and the decline of certain genres, because if you think about it, it's only natural, because look how many years Magical Girl series went away.
They didn't really get a revival until Pretty Cure for the traditional, and then for the subversion, you got Madoka Magica and all its dark spin-offs.
And same thing with like your true shonen series, like Dragon Ball. We have never had another Dragon Ball series. We've had other shonen series.
Now it's kind of One Piece is that dominant style.
One Piece is the dominant style.
And then now you got shorter stuff for that's become popular, like Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen.
Even Demon Slayer. Yes, Demon Slayer is 23 volumes, but to have a shonen series that is a very well done shonen series in 23 volumes, like you have a clear end, it's unheard of.
Yeah, and then Chainsaw Man's first arc was 12 volumes, and now the author has said he has plans for about 15 volumes for the second half of the story.
But that's still going to be time.
Yeah.
But to know that there's a clear end, like we just finished up Fire Force.
With the manga just ended, and we just got season 3 announced today.
Which I'm super excited. So it's not like Mecha is probably gone forever. Because if you think about it, even Ghost in the Shell has kind of taken that nap.
Yeah, cyberpunk anime are a dime a dozen, but when they do come out, it's usually a strong story. Except for Ghost in the Shell 2045.
Yes, we will pretend that doesn't exist. But so what do you think about mecha anime? Have you actually watched a mecha anime? And it's fine if you say no, because there's no right or wrong answer. Everybody has their own thing. But what is your favorite anime type of genre?
And are we going to see a revival in mech anime with different type of stories? Kind of like how Isekai kind of took its break from what it had with its shoujo run in the late 90s and the 2000s. Are we just seeing that null until the next Code Geass project and future Gundam projects come out? Or are we just waiting for something along the lines of like what 86 did, being a hard war story? Is that the route mech's going to be taking again, where it's just really hitting close to home and making a commentary on something?
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see, because most of the mech series came out at a poignant point in time where it needed to be set. And especially Gundam. Gundam was the one who knew that. So it'll be interesting to see how things change. And I'll be curious to see if even Isekai takes another break.
Yeah, and I'm very curious to see what we're supposed to get the next Code Geass project announced late this year, which was supposed to be last year, but we know why that didn't happen.
Many, many reasons.
Many, many delay reasons that has caused a delay in everything. Because we're still not out of this plague yet.
I was going to say, has it ended?
No.
Will it end?
We don't know.
Well, yeah, we don't know. All I know is everybody's saying, get your booster and get another booster. I know. But nevertheless, what do you think of mecha anime? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What's your favorite genre? Please comment in the comments below.
And also, is there any mecha anime in the comments that you would recommend as a starting point? Obviously, we have had ours shared here, but what are your good starting points for a mecha anime?
Yeah, what do you recommend to others so they don't get thrown off by the complexity of it?
And with that, we will see you next time.